I would like to welcome you all to this workshop organized to educate our postgraduate students with all they need to know before, during, and after the VIVA VOCE. I'm Mehwish Shanif and I'm representing Training and Development Bureau of Postgraduate Student Council. Today I will be your MC. To receive the blessings, I would like to call Mr. Mohsin to come and deliver an opening prayer for us.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على كل حال. اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا. اللهم نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم جنبنا المرض والوباء والبلاء وكل محن يا رب العالمين. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم آمين.
Without further ado, I would like to call the speaker of today, which is a very well-known personality in UTP, who happens to be a former dean of CGS and former head of Department of Computer and Information Sciences. He is currently the director of Institute of Autonomous System of University Technology, Petronas. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for him.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. So I've seen a lot of turn up today. I think it's more or less exceeds the venue capacity. So I assume everyone, you are looking forward to have your VIVA VOCE this year. Am I correct? So because we have a huge turnaround, so basically normally people come into this particular session, those who are towards the end of their research. So basically they are preparing. They are more or less like to hear the tips on how they should be able to face the VIVA VOCE. Okay, and then thank you also to the organizing committee who handle and organize this event, and also thank you for inviting me. So I'm more than happy to share my experience as the dean, my experience, countless experience as the chairman, and also countless experience as examiners, and also as a supervisor during the VIVA VOCE. So when I go through the slide, along the way I'm going to share with you the tips, normally, how you should more or less face the VIVA VOCE. A little bit about myself. I don't want to go into detail, so because this session is not about me, it's more about you, how to prepare. Okay, first of all, when we talk about VIVA VOCE, I believe everyone knows. Testing. Can you hear me? No. Okay, everyone should be able to know what exactly a VIVA VOCE, but I just want to go through what has been specified in the book. A VIVA VOCE is an oral examination required for all candidates for research degrees at UTP, regardless whether it's a master or degree level. It is an integral part of the examination process for a research degree, hence it should not be seen in any sense as a mere formality. In some countries like Holland, Indonesia, and a few other countries, VIVA VOCE is just a formality. So basically, before you enter the VIVA VOCE, you know already you are going to get your degree. But it is not the case of Malaysia, UK, and a few other countries. Malaysia, Singapore, UK. I think these are a few countries well known to consider VIVA VOCE is actual examination. It may be the case, if you fail the VIVA VOCE, you fail the whole PhD or the whole master. So how important it is. So somebody, I think only a few weeks back, the university asked me to handle a session to train prospective chairman of VIVA VOCE. So we have a handful of 30 senior lecturers, professors, and associate professors to train them how to become an effective chairperson to run the VIVA VOCE. And first thing first, a few of them who are not well versed in the Malaysian context, they ask, why do we need to have a VIVA VOCE? Given that the candidate have gone through the whole process, have gone through the RPG and so on, and why VIVA VOCE is very important. Because it's part and parcel of the whole examination process of the university. And since UTP adopt a policy in which VIVA VOCE is an integral part of your final examination, so you should not take it lightly. Because I've seen a number of cases, students who even produce numerous publications. To the best of my experience, I have one candidate that produced conference procedure journal, total up to 9 publications, still got category 4 during VIVA VOCE. And why that is the case? Does it indicate that you have huge number of publications? When you enter a VIVA VOCE, it is a guarantee that you will pass? The answer will be no. It's not. Why it is important? Because we have declared in our requirement, MQA, Malaysian Qualification Agency, in order for us to offer a particular degree, we need to submit a document. And in that particular document, we have declared there are two important aspects that the candidate will be assessed. The first one is on the written aspect, that's the thesis. The other one is going to be the oral aspect. So you should be able to communicate well what has been completed pertaining to your research work. And this is going to be assessed during the VIVA VOCE. The panel of examiner for PhD candidates shall consist of the following: 2 external examiners, 1 internal examiner, and also the chairman. So this is we are talking about PhD. For PhD candidate, at least 1 external examiner must present during the VIVA VOCE examination. However, both external examiners are required to submit thesis report prior to the VIVA VOCE session. We have 2. Is that case when both are coming? Yes. Sometimes they are eager to come. I'm not sure why. Sometimes we cannot more or less prevent people from not coming to your VIVA VOCE. So I've seen this, but for our own staff, if you are UTP staff, it is a requirement. Both of them must present if you are UTP staff. So if you are postdoc, undergoing a postdoc, going to be appointed as postdoc, or you are UTP lecturers, then we expect both of them to present during your VIVA VOCE. And then we have 1 internal examiner who is not supervisor or co-supervisor, and the other one is chairman. For master, well, it's only 1 internal, 1 external, and 1 internal. That's for master. So what is the difference in terms of the VIVA VOCE for master and PhD? I would say the only difference is that the number of external. For master, you only have 1 external. PhD, you have 2, only 1 is required to attend your session. The who part, the purpose. Why? The oral examination primarily intended to test the candidate's awareness of the background of the research, the significance of thesis in the field of study, and the extent to which it contributes to the existing knowledge. Because one of the important requirements, especially for PhD, is that we want to ensure whether your work contributes to the body of knowledge. The key word is novelty. How novel is novel? It's a very difficult question to answer. How you consider your work is novel? So I would say a significant portion of the VIVA VOCE is going to dig deeper on that part. How you benchmark your work against all the existing technology and so on. So this is the first part. Why? And then, to enable the examiners to ensure themselves that the thesis is the candidate own work. Is it your own work? Or is it you hired someone to do your work for you? For computing, for instance, the idea must come from you, but you may hire somebody else to develop the system. It's okay, it is acceptable. But the whole idea, the algorithm, the technique, the framework should be your own work. So that's why it means we need to ensure whether you know. Okay? To enable the examiners to clarify with their candidate any aspect of the research work which might be unclear in the thesis submitted. So we have seen many cases. Initially, the examiners gave category 4, category 3 major correction. We're able to be upgraded to minor correction because we're able to convince the examiner. So what do you really mean? Because by reading your thesis alone, it might not be clear to them. The VIVA VOCE is also a platform where the examiners can seek clarification from the candidate on any issues or obscurities in the thesis, and where the candidate is given the opportunity to decline the thesis. I would say it's better as compared to the Australian system. In the Australian system, you are going to be evaluated solely on your thesis. You don't have the opportunity to defend. That's Australian system, and also I believe New Zealand system. But in Malaysia, you're able to defend. You're able to justify why you claim this particular work is more or less aligned to this particular approach, for instance. So you're able to justify your own work in front of the examiners. And trust me, a lot of examiners, I would say about 95% of examiners in Malaysia, my colleagues, normally they don't come here to study. They come here to how to improve your work. So please have Muslims on feeling, more or less a good feeling about that. A lot of time. In fact, myself, I am a tough examiner. I've been called in many universities in Malaysia. People know me to be a tough examiner, but I am a fair examiner. When I write a report for any candidate, normally my report is not going to be less than 10 pages. So I'm going to really write down, because I think it is my work to ensure that whenever the candidate read my report, they know how to improve. It's not right for me as an examiner just to write, okay, this paragraph is not correct. Why is not correct? I need to explain to the candidate why it's not correct. Which part is not correct? If I need the candidate to justify, which part needs to be justified? So I go to up to that extent. But normally I'm not going to go into a formatting. It's not my part to go to formatting. Oh, it's not aligned. It should be aligned. You should go to use this font. Normally, I believe examiners should not go to that part, but look into the content. In cases where the thesis or the candidate clearly does not meet the criteria for the award, the VIVA VOCE also a platform to find out the reason. Okay, this is a few things that I more or less cut and paste from Professor Ryan Poe. So I need to make sure I really highlight Professor Ryan Poe, because I'm taking this part from his report examining the doctoral VIVA perspective from a sample of UK academic, published in 2015. The VIVA is actually a small part of getting a doctorate. The production of the thesis can include many assessments from both supervisors, from the independent readers before it gets to the VIVA. Many students fail and don't get to the VIVA. It is a tragedy if failure occurs at the VIVA. That one is very important. If you want to fail, you should fail before the VIVA, not during the VIVA. Because we have another process. If you fail during the VIVA, there's something wrong with our process. Students should not be allowed to get this far and fail. I have experience of the VIVA producing surprising outcome. The past for students, both examiners thought they would be failing after reading the thesis, and the reverse. Students failing when the examiners thought that they would be passing the student. Have I ever encountered this situation? So far, alhamdulillah, no. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough time for me as a chairman. I think the VIVA is very important. I've seen people salvage their PhD because they presented themselves and they were well under questioning. Because sometimes people, they are really more or less a good orator. They're able to speak well, although they don't have the same capability in writing. So, to be fair, that's why we have VIVA. So, I've seen many cases during the VIVA, the student be able to really explain clearly, and then the examiner end up saying to them, why don't you include that in the thesis? So that's a missing part of the thesis. And to be frank with you, many of the time you submit your thesis because you want to rush for your graduation. Because you know your graduation is going to be November. You want to ensure that the VIVA VOCE could be conducted sometime in June or July. At least you're able to push for your submission before the closure of the graduation candidacy. So you want to be included. Otherwise, you need to go to the next cycle or the following year. So basically what you do, or what they did, is that they just submit the thesis, a lot of errors, but along the way, while waiting for the VIVA VOCE, they do the necessary correction. So by the time when I've seen one case, student put straight away a different title and been asked by the examiner, why you change title? Well, actually this is the correct title. Oh, I think they are very smart. So in fact, they have some concern. Actually, they have addressed it during the presentation. So, and then in a way, it depends. Some examiner, they don't like it. But I would say majority of examiner, they understood the process of the student. They said, well, as long as, most important thing, as long as the work is your own work, you realize what needs to be done, what needs to be corrected, it's fine with that. Okay, first thing first, how to prepare for your VIVA. I have some handout. I think I've shared with you during the research methodology class. For those who have taken research methodology class with me, I've shared this with the student undertaking research methodology. But I think today I just go back to the whole thing. Okay. If you Google out in the internet how to prepare for your VIVA, there's a lot of resources out there. And to be frank with you, a lot of these resources truly help me to prepare for my VIVA. Is there any what we call something that is extraordinary to happen during VIVA? I would say no. You know really what will be the question to be asked by the panel. Can you prepare? Yes, you can prepare. Should you prepare? Yes, you should prepare. At least a couple of days. For me, it took me at least 5 days to prepare, to come up with some list of points that I'm going to explain to the examiner. Because this is very important for you. So you should prepare. So he's pretty confident, but you as a candidate sometimes you have multiple in your stomach. Definitely. So don't take it. So normal question for VIVA VOCE. Okay, the first part, it is a closed session definitely, but normally as the chairman is going to more or less ask the examiner if they have general question, 1 or 2 general question. So what will be the general question? Common general question. There's no secret about it. The first thing they will always ask, what are the contributions to knowledge of your thesis, or what has your thesis contributed to our knowledge in this field, or where is your thesis placed in terms of existing theory? Within 2 or 3 minutes, can you tell us what your PhD is all about? There's no secret about it. It mentioned 2 or 3 minutes. I still remember my supervisor mentioned to me, if you're not able to explain your research work in 2 or 3 minutes, forget about it. You should practice within 2 or 3 minutes what is the selling point of your thesis. Somebody asks you, okay, what's your thesis all about and why it's novel? 2 or 3 minutes you're able to explain. And it makes sense. If you're not able to explain 2 or 3 minutes, people will say, well, maybe your thesis is not understandable by the general public, by the layman. So you should be able to ensure that laymen be able to understand. So that's the first part. Very important thing. Okay. And then people ask about originality. Why you consider your work is very original? Which part is very original? Part of your VIVA VOCE session is also your confidence. People want to see whether you really the one who produced the thesis. If you are really the one who produced the thesis, you should be able to know which particular page. After you explain a certain thing, you are able to more or less link the examiner. Yes, professor, this is the what you call the theory behind this. In order to check further, please turn to page 21 of my thesis. They are going to check page 21. To make things more interesting, you are able to really cite which particular paragraph, which particular line of sentence. Please check paragraph number 2, page 21, sentence number 3. So able to memorize the whole thing. Have I come across? Yes. One candidate, based on my experience as examiner, one candidate be able to more or less have verbatim memory each and every sentence written in the thesis. And I only ask for 5 questions. Because after a while you see, wow, it is more or less almost perfect. They know already the in and the out. And when I explain something, okay, I have some concern with the figure. Which particular figure? Is it figure 3.2 in page this, or is it 3 figure? Okay, I check it. So if you are able to that extent, explain to the examiner, I would say, perfect. But only we don't go up to that extent, right? This one is good enough for me. At least you know. At least you know which part. Okay, that's how I prepare. I know already, okay, which particular page, if they ask about this particular question, generally I know. which particular section I explain what is about. So they are going to know, okay, they are the one they are going to use where you are going to apply the work, okay, and then they are going to ask the fundamental, where the fundamental theory comes from, and then major achievement. Especially if PhD level or master level, perhaps you are really focusing on very fundamental work. A lot of time, examiners are interested to know how you are going to apply and how your work is going to be significant to the industry. Although you are not doing application research, you are doing really what we call a simulation research per se, but you need to know. And whatever you justify to them needs to be supported by evidence. So in my case, people, they have been asking me how you're able to deploy this. And very important thing, they are going to ask why you use this particular technique. I've been asked before this particular, why you choose this topic. At the end of the day, I mentioned that why I choose. I link it back to a very empirical reason.
1, 2, 3.
People going to ask you, what is going to be the core fundamental work that is more or less comparable to your work, and why don't you choose that particular work? So in this particular case, I just want to share with you, I more or less, people, during the VIVA, I don't really look into this trick. More or less you have gone through, you have really practiced it. But they really asked me about this. And I was able to really impress them because I know it's page 26. I have a script for that. Sir, please refer to page 26, in which I really explain why I decided to choose LCC. So they say, okay, they turn to page 26. And then I mentioned, we have work by D. Silva, we have work by Freire and Bolton Ho, and why I did not choose their work. What is the empirical reason why I did more or less opt to use LCC? Because the real reason why I chose LCC was developed by Dave Robertson, and Dave Robertson was my supervisor. That's the real issue. The honest answer. But I cannot answer that. I have to mention that what is the comparative advantage between LCC and the rest of the other available technique. Okay, you need to really prepare that. Okay. Application domain, you really need to apply, and why is going to use. So basically, at the end of the day, by preparing, you ensure that you are more confident. That's the bottom line. You are more confident, you know the in and the out of the thesis. Regardless what people ask you, you should be able to answer that. So how many pages? At least 12 pages. How many pages? I think more than 12, this one. Okay, altogether is 13 pages. But this one is just the gist. I know the key important thing that they will ask me. No secret about the question that normally will be asked during the VIVA VOCE. That you may apply the same thing during your RCS2. You have at least a pool of questions that they will be asking you and how to answer that in a very convincing manner, in a very more or less structured manner that link back to the fundamentals of your research work. So the first thing to prepare. Don't come in to the session not well prepared. So at least the day earlier, you should rest. Sleep early and then come in fresh early in the morning. So you need to more or less, this is a very nerve-wracking experience, I will tell you. But a lot of time nowadays, I think people don't really, I think in the old days maybe yes. It's very like you sit over there, we have all this more or less very serious, fierce looking panel. But nowadays, a lot of time, we have all the friendly panels. In fact, I think if I were, I'm a channel normally, I'm going to ask, can we start now? Do you need the toilet break? Please, if you need toilet break, you can stop in the middle and so on. Yeah. So, you have the right. If you feel that it's a very stressful, ask for a break. You can ask for a break. Okay, we go back to this one. Okay, I'm going to go through to the first one. Okay, we have very structured way on how the VIVA VOCE, the actual VIVA VOCE. The first one is a pre-VIVA VOCE meeting. You may not realize. Before we start with the VIVA VOCE meeting, all the panels together with the chairman, we are going to have a quick meeting. The panel discussed the examiner's report and identify issues to be raised during the VIVA VOCE. The chairman at this juncture attempt to resolve any preliminary conflict. What I meant by preliminary conflict, for PhD session, for instance, we have 3 examiners, 2 external, 1 internal. All 3 of them give conflicting recommendations. So that's initial conflict. So that's the task of the chairman to resolve at this early stage. Why? What's the basis for them to give all the conflicting recommendations? So the chairman briefed the examiners on the conduct of the VIVA VOCE, the candidate and audience read in the VIVA VOCE room. Because sometimes, I would say, we may have a new examiner, never been to any VIVA VOCE session before, so we need to brief them. Okay, after we have the pre-VIVA VOCE meeting, we are going to enter the session. So you are in the room, so you prepare about 20 to 25 minutes presentation. Don't make a long presentation. Time it well. Why? Because we want to go to the third part, that is the actual VIVA VOCE. Number 2 is an open session. Everyone is invited to come. That's the time when you bring all your friends to support. Your supervisor will be there to support you, to give you a moral support. So all the panels will just sit there, listen to your presentation. So the chairman invite the examiners to the VIVA VOCE room. The chairman introduce the examiners and the candidate to the audience. The chairman invite the candidate to present the thesis. The chairman invite the audience to seek clarification from the candidate. If there are any, a lot of time, your friend will not ask you because they know that you are really nervous. So they will not ask you during the open session. And then after that, we are going to request all the audience to leave the VIVA VOCE room for the closed session, because number 3 is a closed session. Number 2 is a open session, because that's the style of UTP. We have open session about half an hour, proceed with the closed session. So don't worry, in the open session you just present, and all your friends will be smiling at you and will say encouraging things to you. Okay, do well. Number 3 is the most important part. That's a closed session. Only you, the 2 examiners, and the chairman. Yes. Why number 3 is a closed session? Number 3 is a closed session because we want the whole thing is being done without any interference from the supervisor and any of the audience. But the supervisor may request. Supervisor may request to the chairman, can I stay? If it is a strong justification, normally the chairman will allow the supervisor to stay. But it is a university policy. University policy, the supervisor should not stay. But based on my experience, I have allowed 1 or 2 cases the supervisor to stay. But the supervisor, even if they stay in the room, they should not say any words at all. Because we want to ensure that the examiners be able to conduct the VIVA VOCE in a really peaceful manner. Yeah. So that's why, to be frank with you, I am also a supervisor. So I have a soft spot for my student. Right, I have a soft spot because I've been with my student for 3.5 years, 4 years. I know their struggle. So if I'm there, and then if it happened, the examiner asks a very tough question, okay, how do I feel? Okay, then I feel, oh, okay, is it more or less the question directed to me or to my student? Okay. So, to be frank with you, as a supervisor, I never attended RPD, RCS, and also VIVA VOCE on my student. But definitely before the session, we have a really more or less really groom my student to have a mock session and so on. And also, let's say, I've been here in UTP for almost like 20 years now. I began my career in UTP in 2000. So if I was there, if it happened, the examiners are like my junior counterpart, how do you feel? Do you think that I'm able to really ask my question freely? They know already, oh, this person is the director of autonomous system. He's the one going to recommend for my grant and so on. So definitely he's going to be, okay, shy away from highlighting their opinion. So I think we need to be professional. That's why we also expect all the examiners not to be there. Okay. So during the VIVA, what will happen? Only the chairman, the examiners, and the candidate. The chairman invite the examiners to ask general questions pertaining to testing. That's the first part, general question. The VIVA VOCE proceed with specific question, going chapter by chapter. or it can be chapter by chapter, or it can be if sometimes the examiners prefer to go by concern. They have any issues, issue number 1, issue number 2, issue number 3. So they don't really go chapter by chapter. So the chairman requests the candidate to wait outside the room if the examiners have no further question. Normally, number 3 will take about 1.5 hours, 2 hours. After that, you're going to be called. You are going to request to leave the room for the examiners to deliberate on the decision. Number 4, post VIVA VOCE meeting. Only the chairman and examiners, the chairman consolidate the examiner's recommendation in a report. The chairman identify the person who will verify the correction should they be required. Okay, number 4 is really important because this is the time when the chairman is going to consolidate the recommendation by the panel. So we have 2 panels, internal and external. So let's say, assuming during number 1, they have really conflicting view, by reaching number 4, we should more or less resolve that. So let's say number 1, before the VIVA, one examiner give category 1 that is almost perfect, the other one is re-VIVA. By reaching number 4 after the VIVA, we should be able to reach our recommendation. So the whole process is going to be coordinated by the chairman. So at the end of the day, everyone needs to sign up a piece of form that's going to indicate in the form which particular recommendation they're going to give to the university and who's going to verify the correction. A lot of time the correction is going to be verified by the internal examiner only. But sometimes we have a really what we call hardworking external examiner that volunteer, can I check the thesis too? So normally if let's say the external examiner volunteer, as a chairman normally I will say, yes, are you sure bro, you want to check, you are very more or less busy person and so on. So sometimes we have that cases, they are really excited to check. So once we are done with this, based on my experience, do we have any problem? Number 4, so far I think most of the cases that I handle, when we reach number 4, we are able to find a consensus. What will be the recommendation? Number 5 is the toughest one. This is the toughest part. We need to inform. We call the candidate into the room. We are going to inform what will be the recommendation. Most of the time, it's a happy ending. Closing, the chairman thanks the examiner and the candidate and closes the session. So that's basically all the session of the VIVA VOCE, step by step. Okay. So what is more important? I would say number 3 is important, and also number 5, where you are able to get the result. Anything that you want to ask? Yes.
Can you please explain that points that differentiate between minor and major?
Okay. The points between minor and major. To answer your question, to be frank with you, is based on the interpretation of the examiners. A lot of factors play during the discussion at number 4. That's why we need to have a very strong chairman. So chairman be able to really explain to the examiner saying that, okay, based on our experience, this kind of correction don't require 6 months to be completed. So I would recommend them, why not we give minor correction? Because it is just a rearrangement of section, just to add a few other things. We don't need to do another experiment. Normally, clear-cut case, if you need to do another experiment, definitely it's going to fall under major correction. But if let's say just need to modify revision on some section, some pages, some paragraph to go here and there, I would say that one falls into minor correction. But that's me, my own interpretation. But some people, they believe, they say that, okay, can the candidate do that? The candidate already mentioned, I think sometime during your VIVA, you mentioned that, oh, okay, I have now working already, so don't mention anything. Because sometimes during their deliberation, they're going to say, the candidate mentioned that he's already working. So if we give minor correction, it's only 3 months. Can they do that? So they think about all other factors, especially all the women examiners. So sometimes you want to entice their feeling. Okay, I just give birth to my children, so now I'm coming and so on. You know what? If the examiners, the final examiners is a lady, they are going to start thinking, oh, you need to raise up the family. You are so they are giving the recommendation based on the duration, not based on the quality of the work. So I keep reminding them, it's like this kind of correction require only 3 months. So we should speed up. And then normally I'm going to really emphasize saying that, okay, if let's say we give them major correction, the candidate will not be able to graduate this year. They will graduate next year. So it's really important the time. And one more thing, I would say nowadays, a lot of supervisors, they really engage you for the nomination of examiners. Am I correct? So do help your supervisor to choose the right examiners. Yeah. Like my case, I have a pool of examiners. I have a pool of examiners that I know if I want a speed, my students are leaving the country, I want more or less something to be done in a really quick manner. I have number 1 until number 5. They are basically don't holding any position. So they are available. Over phone call, I said, well, Prof. Roslina, I have this particular candidate, really need, can you come next week? I said, yes, I'm coming. So that kind of. So I have another pool that more or less, they are very friendly, they are very fair, but it requires them time to look through the disease. So just discuss with the supervisor. And a lot of time my students say that, well, I let you decide. That's the toughest one, because when you mention that to your supervisor, I'm going to be really careful to ensure that, okay, it's not going to jeopardize my student. But I know a lot of my colleagues in UTP, they have really full of examiners. And sometimes the problem is that at the national level, this particular professor are usually helpful, are usually accommodating. That's normally the examiners that is going to be called again and again and again by many people. Right. To be frank, I mentioned, all your supervisors, they have a soft spot for you. Even they don't show it. Yeah. Even they don't show it, they have a soft spot. In many meetings, when I share the meeting, when I ask, especially when we want to deliberate, whether to dismiss a student because of poor result during PAPC, for instance, the supervisors, a lot of time, they are going to give a really glowing remark on the students, saying that this particular student has helped me here, there, and then. And then I said, well, but then you don't give them fair marks during your assessment. So it's kind of conflicting. But I would say a lot of time, supervisor is going to be quite important role, especially in the appointment of examiners. Any other question before we move on? So everyone clear now on the process? Yes. 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 No. If it is minor or major, the external examiner may not be involved unless he or she would like to be involved. Yes.
If they give a major correction, can they release something with 2 months?
To the best of my knowledge, the policy now no, right? The policy now no. Yeah. So that's why duration is very critical. Okay, just to share with you. Sometimes, actually not sometimes, a lot of times, when there is a case, major correction need to be verified by both internal and external. Normally the chairman have really negotiate. Initially what will happen, the external may want to give you revival. But the chairman, during my time, if I am the chairman, I am going to negotiate. It's okay, Prof. Why not? We don't have revival, but you check again the thesis. So we move on to category 3. So that is what we call a cut that we normally play, depending on the mood of the situation. So if let's say you happen to get both, it may be the case during number 4, one of them say, I want a revival. So the chairman need to play a big role, playing all the cards, what is available to save the student not to go to revival. Okay. So that's negotiating. But at the end of the day, it's okay. Rather than go revival, you have 2 persons verifying your correction, right? It's better than revival. So, but most of the time, I would say only internal examiner. A lot of time, our colleague external examiner, they are really busy to go through. And one more thing, if in the report, after we finish with the VIVA VOCE and so on, you are going to be provided with the report of the examiners. The report prior to the VIVA by all the examiners and also the report of the VIVA. There are 4 reports. Let's say you are PhD, you have report from the first external, second external, internal, and VIVA VOCE. You only need to address all is reported in all things that mentioned in the report. If let's say it's not mentioned in the report, you don't need to do that. Because sometimes what really happens is that the examiner may say that something, but it's not recorded in the report. You are not obligated to fulfill the requirement. Because I keep mentioning, when I give training to my colleague, the examiners and also the chairman, I keep mentioning to them, don't put additional requirement. If it is not there during the report, the candidate should not answer that. Because we have some time. What will happen is that the examiners read your thesis again and again. After you have do the correction, and suddenly they read again and suddenly, oh, I think this one need to be changed. If it's not in the report, don't bother. Yeah. But I know a lot. Yeah, sometimes we want it to be perfect. Always my colleague will give justification. I want the work to be a really solid work. My response to them is that if you want it to be a solid work, please put in the report. Don't mention it after the VIVA VOCE. It's not fair to the candidate. Okay. VIVA VOCE presentation and VIVA VOCE, I mentioned it's a closed session. We have a closed door defense session. The chairman reserves the right to allow the supervisor and selected member to be in attendance as observers. But most of the time, we encourage everyone to leave the venue. Okay, let's look. The quotes in the picture below are taken directly from a student VIVA VOCE experience survey undertaken at Harper Adam University in 2016. Okay, the first one, lecturers, especially examiners or chairman, explained the process well before beginning the VIVA. They were friendly and not intimidating. I was made to feel very much at ease, which was nice. Staff were quite reassuring, and the process was well described beforehand. I was praised for my work done. The examiner put me at ease and explained any question I did not comprehend. It was a good way to talk in more detail about certain aspects of my dissertation that I couldn't cover in too much detail in the report due to the word count restriction. That's supposed to happen during the VIVA VOCE. That's the philosophy of the VIVA VOCE. The examiner should not be intimidating. The chairman should not be intimidating. Although we may look fierce, but we should be accommodating. That's the philosophy of VIVA VOCE. Experiences of VIVA are shared between students, and comparing different experiences can bring about further frustration and a sense of inequity. My examiner grilled me on my literature for 20 minutes. It was like a memory test. My VIVA focused only on the methodology analysis. We just had a cozy chat. So if it happened to be a cozy chat, alhamdulillah, good for you. But sometimes it may be the other way around. So, what to expect? I don't have the answer for that. Yeah, certain times we have different examiner based on experience. I've seen a very tough examiner that go through not really page by page, but really word by word. I've seen one cases, but he's a really high profile. She is a really high profile figure in. I think her area is is civil engineering. Yeah. From one well-known university. Very nice person, but when it comes to VIVA, she's very meticulous in the choice of word and so on. So you may feel that if it's over meticulous, I think it should be a really something for you. Try to take an empathic approach. Okay, normally this is the slide that I share with all those my colleagues in UTP, because all those examiners, they need to go training in UTP. So I'm part of one of the trainers. So try to take an empathic approach and understand what the student must be feeling. Clarify and restate the purpose of the examination. Introduce yourself and the examiners, and if possible, provide an overview of how the VIVA will be structured. Okay, one thing, nothing was pointed out as good or even slightly positive, just the negative pointed out. Very few questions asked, only told what mistake I've made, and little opportunity to justify my decision, and when any justification was made, it was ruled out by examiner despite going on the advice of my supervisor. The Viva was very nerve-wracking. In some places made me feel like I have not done a good job. I think there need to be a lot more guidance on what the Viva will actually contain. Okay, that's why I mentioned, before you go to Viva VOCE, well prepared. Sit down with your supervisor. Seek help from the supervisor because it's not a small thing. Especially those who are, okay, never been more or less gone through the process of Viva. But let's say you are doing your PhD, you have gone through the process of master by research, then definitely you have gone through the Viva process. But let's say previously you only enrolled for master by coursework, then you have not gone through the Viva process. So I would say prepare, sit down with the supervisor and take it seriously. On certain thing, don't only focus on fraction of English and grammar. Okay, this is the one that I shared with my colleague, the examiners. Because the Viva is not the place for grammar checking and format checking. Normally we just mention, please, you need to submit to a proofreader. That's enough. Put it in the officially in the report. Please ensure that your thesis is checked by a proofreader. Normally that's the only thing that I put. So I'm not going to repeat again where the grammatical error and so on. It's not necessary. Make sure the time span is appropriate, not so much that it's exhausting. So it's not on the examiner, but it's more on the candidate. But sometimes, a lot of time people love this one because you don't need to speak a lot. All the examiners going to speak on your behalf. Okay, examiner behavior and attitude is about 60 behavior. I have only seen friction about 4 times, and this has been due to bad behavior by one examiner, such as being pompous, being aggressive or arrogant, as I had a hard time doing my Viva and I'm not going to do the same here. The same thing with me. I have involved as an examiner and also as a chairman for almost now, I think roughly about 40 plus VIVA VOCE. No, I think more than that. Because the first year I was the dean, I chair almost 15 VIVA VOCE, but now I think nearly to 50 VIVA VOCE. If people ask me, have I come across a very tragic VIVA VOCE, I would say only 1 or 2. A lot of time is really smooth sailing, it's more or less really comforting for the examiners and also to the students. So I would say don't be afraid for the VIVA VOCE. What irritates me is when an examiner seems to think the process is about her or him, not the candidate. Examiners sometimes seem to feel the need to bring their own agenda to the Viva, which I think is very unfair. If let's say number 3 happened, you can complain officially to the university. Is it truly happened? Not in UTP, but I know a case where it happened in UK. Because it happened there is what we call a long last grievances between the examiner and also the supervisor. That's why sometimes you really need to check with your supervisor. So whenever they call someone to evaluate you for your VIVA VOCE, make sure the person really in the same school of thought. Sometimes it's not that they are enemy of each other, but they are from the different school of thought. Okay, that's also a concern. I've heard of other individuals being present where conflict have arisen as a result of one examiner not particularly liking an aspect of the thesis when it's not about liking and more to do with academic rigor. It's not about you like or don't like. It's more about academic rigor. I shall be able to accept a different school of thought as long as that particular school of thought is fully supported by grounded evidences. That's the only thing. It's all about academic rigor rather than you like or don't like. That's supposed to be the way. I have experience of a Japanese woman who could not bring herself to challenge the authority of the examiners and hardly spoke. The examiners strongly concluded that she did not understand the question. Because this one is about culture. Culture also plays an important role. Especially now, we are talking about UTP in which 25% of our students are international students. It may happen. In the early days of UTP, we have received grievances by supervisors who feel that their students are being aggressive. That's why I think in the early days we need to have and conduct training among the supervisors, saying that you should expect cultural differences. I know people in the Middle East, sometimes you speak loud. But that's the nature of the way on how you speak, right? But some supervisors, they feel like intimidated. But along the way, alhamdulillah, I think nowadays, even at UTP level, people well aware about cultural differences. The same thing with Malaysian. You can see a lot of Malaysians, they are a bit soft-spoken. My colleague, for instance, I keep mentioning to them, be frank to your student. Normally, they don't want to be frank with the student. They give what we call implicit language rather than explicit language. I think your work is okay. What do you mean by okay? Okay mean pass through the VIVA? Okay mean what? So. So sometimes you need to be frank also with your supervisor. Be frank. So that, okay, sir, what do you think about my work? If I submit now, do you think my work meet the expectation for PhD or not? That's the same question that I asked my supervisor, Professor Dave Robertson, one of the Professor Emeritus in UK, where I would like to submit my work. And I mentioned to them, Dave, what do you think of my work? Are you sure that my work will really pass through the VIVA VOCE and so on? He said, yes, don't worry, it should meet the expectation. So that's the kind of answer, a kind of assurance that you need to get from your supervisor. Okay. I also have experience of non-native speakers misunderstanding question and giving the wrong answers or misreading the cultural expectation and irritating the examiner. Lack of difference. So a lot of time, I think because of the cultural differences. But I would say nowadays, a lot of people have experienced different culture. Should not be a major issue anymore. Okay, post VIVA VOCE. After you have completed your VIVA, so what is going to happen? The thesis correction. You need to be corrected. So you need to do the correction. Who's going to verify the correction? First of all, you need to complete the correction. Your supervisor is going to check through, examiners and also chairman. And once you are done with the green color box, only you can move to the purple box. I would say there's a lot of time you spend on the green box to get the signature of the examiners and chairman. If you happen to have a really what we call committed examiners that are able to really check through, then it's going to be an easy process. What is my advice on this? I know a lot of my colleagues in UTP, they are really busy people, so difficult to catch them for them to really check through. In my case, an examiner, normally what I do is that I'm going to ask the candidate, can you spend about 2 hours with me? We have a session, we go through a few issues. That's why in your correction report, you need to be very detailed. Because if you have a really detailed report, you are able to help the examiners to check very quickly all the corrections that have been completed. So normally during the verification, I would advise you to prepare the first one, the original thesis. That's the first document. The second one is the corrected thesis. The third document is the summary of the correction. And along the way, supporting evidence, all the report that have been published or have been produced by the first external, second external, internal, and VIVA VOCE. So that's how comprehensive for you to prepare the document to be verified by the examiners. Sometimes you don't need to submit. I think there's a danger in UTP. You just say that, okay, I just passed through, I put it in your pigeonhole. And you expect the person will check his or her pigeonhole. Good luck. So my advice is that make an appointment with the person. Ask the person, I will prepare everything. I'll come to your office. I need 1 hour of your time. We go through together. So that's what I did. I practiced that. There's a lot of students in which I examine their thesis and their VIVA VOCE. So when I sit down, I look through, I'm comfortable, and then I just put my signature. That's what you want actually, the signature of the examiners, to confirm that all the corrections have been completed. Once the examiners put their signature, the chairman is not going to be an issue, because the chairman is just rubber stamping. Okay. That's true. Even if I'm a chairman, I look at all the report examiners have verified it. Normally, I'm not going to question. Only after that, you're going to go to the hardbound, submission of hardbound, endorsement, and then you are ready to go for your graduation. In the post-VIVA VOCE process, the toughest part is the green box. because that's the part where you need to get all the verification from the examiners and also from the chairman. Okay, I'm going to share with you a report prepared by my students, but it's not a VIVA VOCE report, but a report prepared to justify to one Q1 journal, because my students now, I really push them to go to Q1 and Q2, so they more or less prepared a report to justify to the publisher, and it ended up our journal managed to secure a spot in Q1. So let's look together on how the student completed that part. I think I have also some handout. I think I've shared this is one of my research methodology class, but I just want to repeat it again. Okay. Comment 1. I think this one is we go and really more or less answer the what we call the publisher. Comment 1, the article could benefit from an extensive proofreading round. Especially in your report, there's been a mention that the work should be submitted to a proofreader. Is there any evidence? So you should more or less submit together evidence that your work has been verified by a proofreader. In this particular case, we are talking about journal. So we are using what we call an online version of proofreading. Critical issue and all those have been green. Grammar, punctuation, sentence structure and style. So we are using and employ a software in order to go through the proofreading route. So that's our response when it comes to proofreading. It's having to perform again and corrected grammar, punctuation, verb, sentence. Use specialized software tool in correcting English grammar. Throughout the paper, incorporated about 100 contextual spelling related correction, 140 grammar related correction, and 27 punctuation related correction. So we prove it. We have all the evidence. And then there's some comment by the reviewer of the paper. SOA by itself does not possess any security solution, and security is totally depend on network or transport layer security asset. Please elaborate further in this argument. So we have updated, and we also added 2 citations to support the argument. So how detailed? The more detailed you are able to convince the examiner that it's a really thorough correction process. That's the what we call the effort is there. Okay. So you can see how we go through the detail. So if you are able to put this in the correction report or correction summary, I think that's going to be great. So over here should include a direct one-to-many, because this one they highlight about the mapping and we provide the mapping. Okay, we also provide all the additional citation. Okay, so we remove anything. So at the end of the day, why I share this, I just want for you to see how thorough. Because a lot of time, as an examiner, when I look at the summary of the report, a lot of time, students just put the remark, correction done. It's not a good remark. Correction done, correction done. So as an examiner, I said, what kind of correction have been completed? So you should at least refer back to which page correction have been completed. So that one should be clear. Which page and so on. Because if you do a really thorough job, you help the examiner have no issue to endorse your action. That's what we want actually. In fact, I think based on my experience, the best I have ever come across, students put a sticker, color sticker. They put a color code. This particular correction, color is pink, green, yellow, and so on. So when I look through the thesis, the new thesis and the old thesis, I know already where the color coding. You know what? Less than 15 minutes, I signed the report. They just put it on my table. Okay, this is the old one. This is the new one. All color coded. They have, you know, right? There's a sticker over there. People normally use. Normally, ladies love it. They put it. Okay, this put color, and then in the correction report, they also put notation, which particular page, and so on. So on my part, when I look at the report, easy for me. So I think it's like seeing is believing. I always mention to my students, seeing is believing. Although deeper, maybe your work is more or less just a normal correction. But the effort for you to put all the sticker, the effort for you to link back and so on, it gives a really positive impression to the examiner. So that's what really counts, positive impression. Yeah. So these are all where you're able to put in all the things. So the bottom line is that whenever you do your correction summary, make sure your correction summary is a really detailed correction summary. So whenever the examiner go through your correction report, they know already that you really put an effort. Rather than you need to go back and forth many times. Because impression counts. So make sure you give a positive impression to the examiner. So any question? So it's almost 4 now. So we should finish by 4:30. So I end up for any Q&A that you want to ask me. So the question by our friend here is that why internal examiner become a main issue when the internal examiner have been there since RPD, RCS, BAPC and so on? It's a tough question for me to answer. For me, it's not supposed to be an issue. Yeah, because the person has been there. The one that should become a major issue should come from your external examiner, because the internal examiner have been with you. Yeah, I would say normally it's going to be based on my experience. If the same person have been there since day one examining your work, the worst could happen is that he will give you major correction. But I have not seen any cases revival from the internal. But you are correct. Why you give major correction? It's supposed to be minor correction. You know? Maybe the decision swayed by the external, maybe. Yeah. But to be frank, I don't have the answer. It's about the person. To be frank with you, the same advice I gave to my student: if you get major correction or minor correction, it's okay, as long as you don't get revival. You should be happy. Although sometimes students feel like, okay, I've done my effort, I expect a minor correction, why I obtain a major correction? I always mention to them, it's okay, you don't get revival. Major correction, at least, well, you have more time to go through, and you have more time to have your supervisor produce more journal. Okay, what is the criteria for the selection of examiners? External especially. In the old days, not really old days, during my time we imposed that the external examiner should be professor level, but nowadays we are a bit loose. Especially nowadays, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough people in the science and technology. So associate professor is good enough for the external examiner. But in order to speed up the process, you should ask your supervisor, please ensure the one that you are going to nominate for the VIVA VOCE from the external examiner, they are within the pool actually. If they are not within the pool, the process of nominating a new person is going to take a couple more months. So just ensure, because sometimes your supervisor is too excited to appoint a new person, and that new person not in our UTP database, so it needs to be brought to a different committee. So the process is going to be a bit lengthy. It's better to use anyone that is already in our pool. Yeah. Yes. What is the chances of having no correction? Possible. Last year, I think we have few cases. I think 1 or 2 with no correction. Yeah. Out of 100 or 350, no correction at all. Yeah, it's possible. No correction at all means, I think it's category 1. I think in the old days, let me see the rubric. In the old days, no correction means you can submit your work as it is. But now, in 2017, we have revised. No correction, if let's say it's just a minor grammatical, it also falls under no correction. Because from the early days of UTP until 2017, we don't have anyone be able to get category 1, no correction. Because during that time, our philosophy is that no correction, you submit as it is. But it's kind of impossible, right? During a VIVA, I said, oh, you need a full stop. Oh, okay, now, category 2. That's a no ACDs. So that's why. So in 2017, we realized that's almost impossible. And so 2018, 2019, we can see an increase in number of no correction at all, because we have relaxed on the term no correction. No correction means if there is a change on the title, little bit, change the title of the few sentence, grammar and so on, it's okay. But if it's more than, I think there's about 10 grammatical correction, I think more than that, you go to category 2. Category 2 is minor. So it's possible. So any other question? Yes.
Is there any situation where the candidate need to redo the experiment and such?
Yes. Especially when verification of result. So let's say now, because I'm from computing field. So in computing, whenever you come up with a model, with come of algorithm, you're going to test your model algorithm with data. So sometimes the data is not enough, or you are using data that is collected on your own. So examiners will normally ask, why don't you use public data? Assuming that public data is available. So why don't you use a common data or standard data that have been used by all the other similar work, already benchmarked in the industry or already benchmarked in the academic world? So if you do not done that, maybe you're going to ask, can you run with all the public data? So that's normally the case. But I would say if you have that problem, normally the supervisor not doing their job properly. They should advise. So they should expect this kind of thing to happen. Any other question? Me? Yes, okay. I agree with you. The purpose of the chairman and the role of the chairman is to be the moderator. Chairman not expected to ask questions, should not ask questions. That's why when we have the VIVA VOCE chairman training, I'm the trainer, I mentioned to them. Because sometimes we are a really senior person, we have gone through the process. We more or less when you are sitting there, that you know there is something mistake. Because I think only 3 weeks back we have this training. One of my colleagues asked, you know already that it's wrong. Not pointed out by the external, not pointed out by the internal. Can you ask? The answer for me, as I am the trainer for the chairman and chairperson, I mentioned you could recommend. It's up to the examiners. You need to recommend very politely. So you could mention that, okay, normally in this particular field, people do this way. So prof, internal, external, you want the candidate to really look into that, something like that. But we cannot simply take up the role of examiner. I know, I think in the old couple of years back, we don't have this training, but since last year, we have begun the training of VIVA VOCE chairman. They need to undergo a training. We need to reprimand ourselves, not to act as an examiner. Although we know there is a glaring mistake and so on. So we need to be a bit subtle how to reprimand. So I understand. It happened, but starting from last year, we have begin the training for the chairman and chairwoman and chairperson. So we hope we can see improvement. Yes. Okay. Any other things? Yes. Okay. The examiner should be from the same department, not necessary. Not necessarily. Most of the time should be from the same department. But let's say we are talking about process safety. I don't know. EE and chemical, they share this is what we call process control, right? In EE you have process control, electrical, electronic. In chemical also you have a group of process control. So it may be the case the EE students may call internal from the chemical, but it's quite rare to happen. But we have seen cases like that. But it's up to the supervisor. If the supervisor nominate the name, then the committee will consider. But I don't see any case like no nomination at all from the supervisor, suddenly a name appear. It should not happen that way. So it all comes with the supervisor. So if suddenly that happened, you should ask the supervisor why suddenly these people name coming up into my nominated as a leader. So they're able to give justification why they don't need. Any other question? Okay. Yes. One last. Okay. One last one. Okay. Is the report confidential? On paper, it's not supposed to be revealed to the candidate on paper. But I know a lot of practice by department, especially if the report is a very what we call, not to say damning report, but the report is like really negative in nature. So let's say that the examiners recommend category 4. Normally, the chair, within his or her power, will convey the message to the supervisor to get the candidate ready accordingly. But let's say, okay, now we are going for the VIVA VOCE. You don't get any report, good for you. It's a good news. But if you get a report, it means there must be something happen in between. So let's say suddenly your supervisor call you, please prepare, please prepare. So something is not, I think they got a really what we call a negative report. So normally we share with the supervisor, but not directly with the student. Depending on the practice by department, I would say. Okay. It's okay. If the time is not enough, what you can do is that you can request for extension from CGS. It's a very simple memo. You just that one need to be endorsed by supervisor, and then CGS normally will give additional extension a couple of months. Don't worry about that. The only problem is that you would like to submit early. That one is no with CGS. Yeah. Okay, I think that's all from me. I would like to make dua everyone that is going to go on with your VIVA VOCE this year or next year. All the best to you. Don't worry too much about the VIVA VOCE.